Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dawn Ying. I am the District PTA Executive Vice President, and I am very pleased to introduce Beth Proudfoot, who is our speaker tonight. Beth is a marriage and family therapist with over 30 years of experience working with children and their families. She is a co-author of the book, The Magic of Positive Parenting, and has spoken at conferences for the National Center for Self Esteem, the NAEYC, California Mothers of Twins, and the California Council of Parent Participation Nursery Schools, in addition to schools and daycares throughout California. Beth is also the mother of 3 grown children and brings a wealth of personal experience and a much needed sense of humor to her parenting advice. Welcome, Beth.
Well, thank you, and I'm so happy to be here. Welcome to all of you who are joining us tonight. Thank you for coming. I know that it's a challenge to actually sit down and do something like this on a weeknight, so I appreciate that you are all here. And please do use that chat feature. Please do use the Q&A. I'm not going to be watching it because it's just too many things for me to watch, but Eric and Don are on it. They're going to be watching that and interrupting me. And we'll also see if we can actually pause every once in a while so that we can get your questions answered. I'm interested in your comments too, as we talk about happiness tonight. So yeah, I'm a marriage and family therapist and I work with kids. I actually am the founder of a little clinic in San Jose called the Child and Family Counseling Group. So what that means is that I'm supervising a whole bunch of other therapists who are very on top of what's happening in the world right now, and kind of concerned, actually. This is a tough time. So it's important for us to talk a little bit about happiness. Yeah, it is scary out there. And there is cultural anxiety right now. Like everybody is up to here. In fact, what we're hearing at the clinic is like mom after mom telling us, I'm done. In fact, that's the exact words. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm finished. It's not happening. And you know, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Moms in particular are totally stressed out, but you know, I'm gonna just add dads too. Being a parent right now is just incredibly challenging. There's a lot to be afraid of out in the world, and a lot of very uncomfortable parameters that we're all having to try to live with. And what that means to me is that we have to work extra hard to fight that wave, actually. We have to make a special effort not to dive with the rest of the culture into scared and angry and done. We got to figure out a way to get out of that. And not only for ourselves and for our families, but for everybody. We have to somehow float this boat. So I think it is important to be thinking and talking about how do we turn things around. You know, right at the beginning of COVID, I went to a lecture virtual lecture by Dr. Fred Luskin, who is a professor at Stanford. He runs the Forgiveness Project there, and he's written several books about forgiveness. And he had a really wonderful point to this lecture, which was, you know what? We have to separate out physical safety from emotional safety. When we're thinking about our physical safety, there actually are things that we can do, that we are all doing more or less anyway, to keep ourselves and our families safe. You know, we're wearing masks. We're trying to socially isolate as much as we can. We're, you know, taking precautions. If we have a little bit of a sniffle, we're not going out. You know, we're doing things to keep our community safe and to keep ourselves safe. Great. Okay, let's put that in a bucket. And then we have this other bucket of emotional safety. And they're correlated in interesting ways, but I think it's important for us to really think about I've done things to take care of myself and my family to keep us safe. What do I do to keep myself from worrying all the time? What do I do to keep myself from being like so stressed out up to here that my kid just asks where their pajamas are and I just blow? Yeah. What do I do about that piece, that bucket? Yeah. And the way that they're interrelated is that actually when we are right up here and ready to blow, and we do blow, and we make things worse, and then our physical reality, right, becomes something we have to deal with and another problem to be solved. Yeah. So it is important to separate out those buckets and to pay very good attention to the emotional bucket. Pay very good attention to that piece, because actually it helps float the boat. It helps the physical problems in the world become fewer. So let's talk about a little bit about happiness. What is happiness? What's the definition for that? Well, let's think about that. I think we use this word happiness and we throw it out. Yeah, but what does it really mean? So take a second, write it in the Q&A. What do you think happiness really is? What does it mean to you? Is it the feeling that you get because you were satisfied because you did a good job? Is it deep calm and contentment? Is it something good happened and you're excited about it? What else could it be? Just satisfaction from having created a life that you enjoy? Is it more like self-actualization, that you have values and you're living your values, and that brings you a feeling of congruence somehow? I actually think it's all of those things. I think it's everything. And it's just a feeling. And we all know it when we have it. We all know when we have that feeling of, yeah, I'm feeling happy right now. I'm going to actually tell you a little bit. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm actually going to talk about happiness for just a little bit, because I think it's fascinating, and I hope that you do too. And then we're going to dive into what to do about that, how to help yourself be more happy, and how to help your kids be more happy too. But let's start a little bit with some of the research, because I think it's fun, and I think it's, as you're considering what to do about your own happiness, it's nice to know what the research is about this. So, in other countries, they don't care about happiness. In fact, they think it's just so gauche and so American. So they don't study happiness in other countries. It's only here, where it's in our Constitution, that we have a right to happiness, that we study happiness. So there's a lot of good research in the United States about happiness. And I actually was lucky enough to be able to go to a lecture many years ago by Dr. Derek Izakowitz, who is a professor in psychology at Brandeis University. And his research is all about that actually there's a genetic component to happiness. That it seems that all of us were born with like a set point. So sometimes, so we have this genetic set point, and then sometimes good things happen and we go above our set point. And sometimes bad things happen, we go below it, but we always keep coming back to it's like our personality. It's what we're born with, what our set point for happiness is. And part of the way that they study this is to just ask people, scale of 1 to 10, kind of generally, how happy are you? And so I want you guys all to be thinking about that right now. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you on the happiness scale? Got it? All right. So worldwide, the most popular answer to this question is 7. And what that means for you is that if you said you were 7, you're just kind of like everybody else. If you said you were 8, though, you think of yourself as more happy than most other people. If you said that you were a 6 or 5, then you think of yourself as being less happy than most people do. Yeah, I think it's interesting to know about that. I was fascinated by this idea, though, that there's this set point, and I'm like, it's a little bit discouraging to me as a therapist, because I would like to tell people that they can get happier, right? Okay, so first time I raised my hand, it was because he said that he can tell from the behavior of a newborn baby how happy they're going to be for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, wait a minute. I had 3 babies. Newborns don't do very much. I mean, they cry, they poop. So I raised my hand and said, what is it about the behavior of a newborn? And he said, it's how much they reach out. So if you put a thing or a person in their, limited vision, how much do they reach for it? And the more an infant reaches for something, the higher their set point is going to be later. Fascinating. Also, discouraging to me, because it's like, yeah, okay, is this destiny? There's nothing we can do about it. So I had to raise my hand again. I said, is this destiny? Is this true for everyone, that their set point never changes? And he said, no, absolutely not. When I say that the set point is genetically determined, that's statistics. There are always people at either end of the spectrum, right? He said that, and there's people who had a set point of 7, and later in life they got down to a 3, and there's people who had a set point of 5 and they ended up being a 10. So there's outliers, and I'm like, great, that's awesome. What is it that makes people go to different levels? And he said, I don't know, something to do with experience. And then he kept going, and I'm like, wait, what is that experience? And I did not get the answer from Dr. Nzako. So let's move on to other research about happiness. So there's a whole field in psychology about attachment. And there's a thing called attachment theory. Some of you may know about this. I actually, when I was a student at Stanford, thousands of years ago, I actually was a coder for one of these experiments about attachment. And it turns out that in the many, many decades since then, a lot has been learned about how children attach to their primary. So this is about, in your first year, how securely were you attached to your primary caregiver? And it turns out that about a little over half of people were quite securely attached. And this is key, actually, for future happiness. It's a key thing for better relationships, to have that secure attachment when you were a tiny baby, before you were 1. The rest of us, the other 45%, are going to have some challenges later in life. Attachment theorists will tell you that they can tell from an interview with a pregnant mother how happy her child is going to be before the child is born. That's mind-blowing. And the way that they do that, what they interview that pregnant mother about, is their attachment to their primary caregiver. It is the kinds of things that you do to attach to a baby. You learn as you're a baby, right? And then you do it when you are our parent. This destiny is determined before you're 1 year old thing doesn't work for me as a counselor either, I will have to say. And one of the things that I really looked at in the research was, okay, but wait a minute, can you do something about that? And the answer is yes. And that oftentimes people, children and adults, have experiences, and mostly that's about, the attachment theorists are looking at relationships that are healing, relationships that are secure, that help people to get that feeling of being safe in relationship, that can happen anytime in life. So that's good news, right? Still, I wanted a little bit more. So let's go on to other research about happiness. Back in the, 60s, when they first started to think that there might be a connection between stress and illness. some researchers developed this instrument called the Holmes-Ray Social Readjustment Scale, which you could probably find on the internet. And it's been used in thousands of studies probably over time. It's just a list of bad things that could have happened to you in the last year. That theory of happiness or level of stress being the more bad things that have happened to you, the less happy you will be, the more stressed you'll be. And it's things like, did you move? Did you have a spouse die? Those get lots of points. Did you go to jail? Did you change jobs? There's like 100 things that are on this list, and they're weighted because of the researchers' idea about how stressful those things might be. Well, it turns out that if you score highly on that test, you are a lot more likely to have a heart attack. And in fact, you're a lot more likely to have other stress-related illness. And if they were developing it today, they would just say, okay, well, we know all of us have been through COVID, and we're just going to add Christmas during COVID and just see how many people have heart attacks. Anyway, very true. Statistically, that if you have if you have had a lot of bad things happen to you recently, you are more likely to be totally stressed out and get sick. But in these studies too, it's really important to look at the outliers. What about the people who were hardly stressed at all, like nothing bad happened, and they still had the stress-related illness? What about those people who, had huge, terrible, horrible, awful things happen to them, and they didn't have any stress-related illness at all? Very clearly, the research is showing that it is people's attitude about those bad things happening that determines whether they become ill from it or not. So let's talk a little bit about attitude. And for this, we're going to go to England. Now, they don't study happiness in England, remember, because they don't think happiness is important. They study luck. So Dr. Richard Wiseman is a psychologist in Britain, and he has written this book called The Luck Factor. I give this book to pretty much everyone I know who's going through a life transition because I just think it's amazingly interesting. So, same scale of 1 to 10. How lucky are you? Again, most popular answer worldwide is 7. So, but what Dr. Wiseman did is he said, well, let's study this. Let's take the 10s, the people who think they're the most lucky person on the planet, and see what's different about them from the 1s, the people who think that they are the most unlucky person on the planet. And it's fascinating. And I'm not going to go through the whole book, and really read the book. It's really, really interesting. But one of the things that they figured out in their study early on was that they actually had a person from each group who had been in a horrendous truck accident in their lifetimes. And they thought, wouldn't it be interesting to find out more about this? So they interviewed both men. First, they interviewed the men in the I'm the most unlucky person on the planet group, and asked them tell me about the truck accident. Oh, it was terrible. This is one of the reasons I gave myself a 1. This truck came out of nowhere. I was terribly injured. I had to have several surgeries. I will always be a cripple. And that I had to spend like 2 years in the hospital. It was terrible. Sorry, my mean and gruff voice has given me a cough. Anyway, then they asked the guy in the 10s, so tell me about your truck accident. He said, this is one of the reasons I gave myself a 10. I am so lucky to be alive. This truck came out of nowhere. And it's amazing. And I have to use a cane, but I can walk today. And it's all because of the amazing efforts of the doctors and nurses who were so supportive in my 2 years in the hospital. I mean, he just went on and on about how he learned about life and how this is one of the many reasons why he calls himself a 10. So I'm going to ask you this question. Which of these guys would you rather have a cup of coffee with? Which of these guys would you prefer to hire for a job? Which of these guys would you like to go out on a date with? Yeah. I think Dr. Wiseman's point is that that attitude determines action, and actually creates the world that you live in. Right? That people who are lucky are kind of making their own luck by their attitude about what happens to them. Yeah. And I think that's really important to just digest for a second. How do we create a negative reality? By our negative thoughts and our negative, the way we are talking about what's happened to us in the world. Yeah. Okay, that's a little bit heavy. So then we'll move on to a different kind of research. And this is Mathieu Ricard is a pretty famous Buddhist monk. For a while, he was the French translator for the Dalai Lama. But before he became a Buddhist monk, he was a neuroscientist in France. So back in the day when they were first developing the functional MRI, they asked him if he would come and do it for them, because they had this idea that maybe a Buddhist monk's brain was different than other people's brains. And you know, the functional MRI, you go in the tube and it does the ping, 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 and it sees your brain in action in the moment. So he said, okay, sure. And this got a lot of press when it was done, because it turned out that his brain actually was fundamentally different than other people's brains. He was named the happiest person on earth. And it was clear that actually he had, they call it a glial pathway between his emotional brain and his prefrontal cortex. And that this was fundamentally different than other people's brains. Wow. And so he was asked to speak about this a lot. How come you got to be the happiest? What's the secret to your happiness? And it turns out that a lot of what Buddhist monks do is actually beneficial to happiness. Meditation and philosophy, attitude, philosophy about bad things happening. That's one thing Buddhist philosophy is really good at. How do we take what's happening in the world right now and interpret it in a way that keeps our happiness and doesn't make us suffer? Yeah. Anyway, Mathieu Ricard says happiness is just a muscle. It's a muscle like every other muscle in your body. And the more you exercise that muscle, purposefully, planfully exercise the happiness muscle, the happier you'll be. Now that one I like. I love that because that I can do something with. Yes, let's figure out what are the happiness exercises. Let's do them. Let's do them every day, and especially now. Let's do them a lot. Let's teach our kids how to do them so that we can kind of raise the bar, raise that set point for everybody in this world. I am going to tell you some exercises, but first we got to talk about this. I know that you're stressed out right now. The time is like gone. Like, where's the time? That there are so many that you're working, trying to keep the house in order, trying to shop with a mask on, trying to get your kids through their homework. There's just, the time is gone. And I think part of what the issue is about any kind of exercising, any kind of anything that requires self-discipline, anything that actually makes us happy, we put that last on the priority list. You know, I think as parents, we put our kids first, and then we put our job, and then, okay, my personal happiness, that is like way down the list. And if you get nothing else from this class, I hope that you will take with you that actually your personal happiness is the most important thing. It is the thing that everything else rests on. So you have to make it first instead of last. And the other thing I will say that is that for anything that's new, anything that's a new habit, anything that's a new exercise, which denotes kind of, this is going to be hard, it's going to require self-discipline, it really helps to have a buddy. It helps to have an accountability partner. So any friends that are on this meeting who want to get together after the class and talk about how they can support each other in actually doing their happiness exercises, that would be great. Enlist a friend, enlist a relative, enlist your spouse, enlist your kids in figuring out how you can hold. I will tell you this, I once took a Pilates class at 5 a.m. And the only reason I took this Pilates class at 5 a.m. is because I had a buddy who said, okay, we're going to be accountability partners and we are going to get through, it's a 6-week class twice a week, and we're going to get through it. And the way we're going to get through it is if either one of us does not show up at 5, the other one gets to call them and just give them hell. And she really enjoyed calling me when I was a little bit late. And I really enjoyed calling her when she was a little bit late. And by golly, we finished that class. So it's possible even to do Pilates at 5 o'clock. And it's easier. It's much easier if you have someone who's doing it with you. So I'll just offer that as one strategy. So one more slide before I start talking about happiness exercises. And that is to tell you a little bit of a personal story about a dark time in my own life. I'm a 9. I have always been like super happy. People commented about it in my childhood. It was like, oh my God, you're such a happy child. I was born happy. So I got lucky with the happiness gene. And then something really, really bad happened to me. That I wasn't prepared for because I'd always been happy. I didn't have any strategies. And that was when I was just 50. My husband of 30 years came to me one day and said, I haven't loved you for a long time and I want a divorce. And I know that it makes me look really pretty stupid when I say that that was a total surprise. It was a complete shock to me. If you had asked me the day before about what I believed to be true about the world, one of the things that I would have told you is that I was going to be married for the rest of my life to the same guy who I loved very much. So this divorce was really an earthquake for me. It was, I was filled with grief, actually. A lot of people, I work in divorce now. I do a lot of work in divorce, and I get it that most people, when they're going through divorce, kind of bop between fear and anger. And that wasn't me. I bopped between fear and grief, just horrible, awful sadness. And I had to survive, and I had teenage kids that I had to parent. I had to figure out about, going back into practice after being a stay-at-home mom for a while. I had to make decisions about this divorce. And I had taught stress management for, 20 years before this happened. So I kind of used everything I knew. And I really took it seriously. And about a year after my husband told me he wanted a divorce, I found out I had a brain tumor. So that was like even worse. And yeah. So I did make it a priority. I did make my happiness a super priority. And I tried a lot of things. And I will tell you, the reason I've told you this whole story is to let you know that there are a lot of things that people do to make themselves happy. And many of them don't actually work. They might be a distraction in the moment, but they don't really work to make you really happy. To reduce your stress, to make the problems in your life go down instead of going up. So I'm only going to give you the good ones. Some of the things that you may have already tried or that you're thinking of trying, like just really super distracting yourself. That's what people use a lot. Maybe I'll just watch YouTube videos all night long and that'll make me happy. No, it won't. It'll distract you, but it won't lead to the kind of happiness that's going to ensure that you're as healthy as you can be and that you're making the wisest decisions that you can. So let's get into the ones that do work. All right, let's go. Now, I didn't used to have this in my happiness talk, but for COVID, it's definitely here. We have got to put some filters on. The news is part of the problem. The fact that news organizations started to lose money and decided that what they needed to do in order to survive was to create drama around every single news story. Means that watching the news now is guaranteed to make us angry, to make us just worried, terribly upset, terribly sad. Oh my God, Tiger Woods was in an accident. Yeah. And it's not just that they're only reporting on those things, it's they're hyping it up. And that because there's so many different ways for us to get our news, we're confirming our own biases by going to the news that makes us feel right. Yeah, it makes it even worse. This is a very serious societal problem that we're going through right now. And my recommendation is filters, right? People get addicted, and either side of the political aisle, they get addicted to that talk show host. There's an addictive quality to getting excited, right? And we need to just take a break. We need to all take a break. And you can take a break in lots of different ways, and it can be a short break, but let's just take a break. Let's take a break from the Facebook friends who want to talk politics. Let's take a break from the news shows that want to ramp us up, right? I love this little cartoon. In the happiness box, there's no bad news. Yeah. And we can make the choice to filter it out. I, at one point, went for a 2-week hiatus, and I actually told people not to tell me what the news was. And I needed it. And then I went back to, okay, I can read the paper newspaper. And then if there's a story that's upsetting, I can just turn the page. Yeah. I'm back to listening to MSNBC, my bad, and I have to stop that. Because I think all of us need to filter. Recognize that there are problems that we can take action and do something about, and do those actions, right? And then do whatever we can to take care of our emotional bucket as well, okay? That was my really big stern lecture for the evening. So let's get on to something a little bit brighter and talk about the breath. So actually, with every breath, we're activating both sides of our nervous system. So you probably know all about this. You may know more than me. Essentially, there's two different sides. There's the sympathetic nervous system, that's the excite part. And then there's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relax part. And every breath, on the in-breath, you activate, and on the out-breath, you relax. If you think about it, think about the Blair Witch Project. Think about yourself when you're scared. How do you breathe? You breathe like this, right? All in-breath, yeah? When you're totally relieved, because it turns out it's totally fine, there aren't any problems, how do you breathe? Yeah. So as a happiness exercise, you can do this breathing consciously. What Buddhist monks do is they chant the Om, right? So that's an in-breath, a deep in-breath, and then a long out-breath, which with sound. You don't have to do the Om. You can do the oh, whatever sound you want to make. You can make a practice of, I'm going to breathe in on 5 and out on 10. And I'm just going to sit in my car at the grocery store and just do in on 5, out on 10 times. Yeah. Okay. Just try that exercise. You'll see that there's a real calming effect. Whole body just settles. Yeah. There has been some research on this. Did I already say this? Once a day, you have to get calm. It's only once a day. Get down to 0 once a day. Yeah. And your risk of illness goes down like a rock. Yeah. And that could be that 5 minutes that you spend with the breath. There's apps for this that have a little mandala that goes out and then it goes down. There's an app called Calm that does this, helps you focus on your breathing. There's also a lot of other yoga exercises about breath meditation, just following it. Yeah. Exercise is another way of breathing, right? When you exercise and you breathe hard, what is that doing? It's resetting your whole system. Exercise is actually stressful, but when you're done exercising, you go back down to zero. So, and actually one little clue about exercising is that if you do it at the same time every day, you actually get better at it, and it does more to reduce your stress level if you do it at the same time every day. So like your body is ready for, let's reduce stress now because we're exercising. So you already knew you were supposed to exercise. I'm just giving you another kick in the pants. Meditation is also extraordinarily good way to get down to zero every day. Meditation isn't hard. Meditation is pretty easy. Having the self-discipline to do it every day is hard. That's why it's good to take a class. I love yoga breath meditation. If you can find a local class through the Art of Living Foundation, it's lovely. They have a class called Happiness, which is all about philosophy and breath. Let's get us all down to zero and figure out how to have a different attitude about the problems in our lives. Yeah, lovely. Laughter is also great for stress. Isn't that good news? Because you all have kids, right? And kids, you know, average 4-year-olds laughs like 400 times a day. Average adult, 8. This is one of the advantages of having children. You can laugh with them. Look up the dad jokes and just try them out. You know, if you have little kids, all you have to do is say pee and they will just roll on the floor. So, and if you laugh with them, that's an opportunity for you to get your laughter too. When I was going through my deep, dark time, I actually took a class in comedy improv. Now, I was not very funny, I just gotta say. I was great at handing people the straight lines though. And when I did, and they would make me laugh and I would just be rolling. I could never be a professional comedian because I would be laughing so hard at other people's jokes, but that was marvelously healing for me. They've done studies of people before and after laughing, and your T cells go up after you laugh. It's an amazing antidote for stress. And then getting out in nature, hugging a tree. Trees actually calm us down. A lot of research on this too. Just being in trees grounds us. Yeah. Okay. Next one, compassion. So actually getting out of ourselves and into our compassion for other people. So I'm going to do this as like a 1-minute exercise, and we're going to do it together. And you can do it by yourself later if you want. Okay. So this is when I want everybody to just get comfortable a little bit, and we are going to close our eyes, and you're not missing anything if you close your eyes. And just relax into your chair and take that nice deep breath in and a nice long breath out. And just relax your body. And then I want you to think about all of the people in the world right now who are suffering more than you are. And we know that there are many people who are suffering terribly right now. And imagine that above each of their heads is a gray cloud of suffering. And now imagine that your heart is like an incinerator. It's a super hot furnace. And as you breathe in, imagine that you're breathing in the gray clouds of every person on the planet who is suffering. And that gray cloud is burning up in the furnace of your heart. And as you breathe out compassion for all of those who are suffering. Let's do that again. We're going to breathe in all of those dark clouds and breathe out our love and compassion. And when you're ready, open your eyes. That's a lovely meditation, isn't it? And that's, I kind of paraphrased it a little bit, but I got that from Mathieu Ricard's book about happiness. A good book to read, yeah. Okay, next one is gratitude. And I actually think gratitude is the big one. Well, there's lots of big ones. Gratitude is amazing. When Dr. Luskin was doing his forgiveness project all over the world in war zones, what he found was the very best way to get people out of anger and needing for revenge was a practice of gratitude. I think it's critical to be having self-discipline in moments of sadness or anger or fear, to remember to take care of the emotional bucket by thinking of what you're grateful for. Gratitude and sadness, gratitude and anger, they can't live in the same space. So when you have that gratitude thought, your throat gets like, it's almost like you're going to cry from that gratitude, and your survival brain forgets what you were upset about. Yeah. It's a wonderful way. When I was deeply grieving, I would go through rumination. You probably have all experienced this when you're experiencing a problem and you go to sleep and then you wake up and your brain has been trying to solve a problem like over and over and over again, and you're thinking the same thought over and over and over again. Gratitude works for that. When you catch it, to go, oh yeah, I'm ruminating. I'm not going to be thinking of any good new ideas when I'm ruminating. I need to get out of it. How do I get out of it? I think of what I'm grateful for. Dr. Luskin started a project with people to have a gratitude journal. And this is something I recommend for every single one of my clients, and which I do, is that I have a journal beside my bed. And every night I have to write down something that I'm grateful for. And the really powerful rule of this little exercise is that you can't repeat. You have to keep thinking of new things you're grateful for every night. Very powerful. All right, the next one is humor. This is, I don't know if you can see this on your screen. This is a great big truck with 6 things of toilet paper. That's the only thing on the whole truck. This was from early in COVID when there was a toilet paper shortage, and it was funny. So I added that to the, and I actually think a lot of comedians have talked about this, that humor is just taking a tragedy and making it something you can laugh at, right? The bottom of humor is tragedy. It's bad things happening. And it's when you can tell that story about it that makes people laugh, that you know that you're totally over it. You've triumphed over the bad thing that happened, when you can tell that funny story about it. Many years ago, I went to a class about how to be a professional speaker, and they said, okay, guys, every single bad thing that's ever happened to you in your life, that's just material, which I thought was great. And you know, I have a friend who was a professional comedian, and while she was developing her show, she worked as a tech person and in one of these offices that's all cubicles, you know, and she would try out her jokes on her colleagues at the, you know, in the snack room. And pretty soon, whenever people saw her heading for the snack room, they would go because they wanted to hear her latest joke, right? So having a sense of humor is also a way to make friends, for sure. But it's also a way to just turn things around. Just take something that's really sad and just make it into something funny, and then it doesn't own you anymore. You know, I think when we have problems, when serious things happen to us, it owns us, right? And one way to get on top of it is to tell the funny story about it. So this may not be funny to you, but it was funny to me. I was in a situation where a roommate situation, but it was an office roommate. And one of my office roommates was just really, really awful. And I was owned by this problem. I was ruminating about this problem. I was trying to figure out what to do about it. couldn't figure out what to do about it. There probably wasn't anything. Like I was stuck in this lease. And I was talking to a friend about it, and she said, what does he remind you of? And I said, well, you know that villain in the James Bond movies that has that hairless cat and they're stroking the cat, that's who he reminds me of. And she said, okay, the next time that you get an email from this guy, I want you to think of that. And I did, and it was funny. And I actually kind of laughed out loud. It wasn't as serious. And you know what? I actually solved that problem. And part of it was because it didn't own me anymore. Yeah. I got on top of it. I changed my attitude about it through humor. Yeah. So, okay, last one is kindness. So the worst day in my odyssey of my bad time was the day that I went to see the surgeon, and he said, yeah, you're definitely going to have surgery on that brain tumor. And I was, pretty depressed. And so I said to my son, I need to laugh. Let's go. There's a funny play in downtown San Jose. Let's go watch that play. So he went with me, and it was really funny. And that was great. And then we got home, and the puppy needed a walk. Now, I had thought that getting a puppy would be a good way to bring me happiness. That was one of the things I should not have done, because actually puppies are a lot of work. And that puppy was so much stress. And so it's midnight and I have to go walk the dog. So I don't take a jacket. I don't bring a flashlight. I'm going to take the dog around the block, and I trip and fall and I break my finger. So a very bad compound fracture. It was bad. And fortunately, when you first injure yourself, it doesn't hurt that much. So I got the dog, I got home. No, my teenager did not want to go to the emergency room with me in the middle of the night. So I'm driving to the hospital in the middle of the night, and I have this suddenly the pain comes, and suddenly I remember the other painful experience I've had recently, which is my husband telling me he wants a divorce, and my telling him that my deepest fear was that I was going to be old and sick and alone. And there I was, old and sick and alone, driving myself to the hospital in the middle of the night. So I was deeply crying. It is a miracle, and I'm very lucky that I made it to the hospital. And I got there, and there was no one there. At least no one in the waiting room. It was a slow night in the emergency room. There was no one in that little triage place. There was no one. I was alone. I was standing, dripping on the floor. Finally, someone came out, but it was just another visitor. And we started to talk. And, she's like, how did you break your finger? And I said, well, the dog was pulling on the leash and I tripped and fell. And she said, you can get a collar that goes on your dog and makes them turn instead of pulling on the leash. I said, I know, my sister got me one for my birthday and I can't figure out how to put it on the dog. And she reached in her pocket, she handed me her card, and she said, I own a pet store. I want you to come into my pet store anytime, bring your dog in the collar. If I'm not there, one of my staff is going to show you how to put that collar on the dog, which was a very kind thing to say. So then finally the nurse comes, and I'm talking to the triage nurse, and I tell her that actually this was not the worst thing that happened to me that day, because the worst thing was finding out I had to have surgery on my brain tumor. And she said, okay, who's your surgeon? And I told her, and she said, he's the best in the valley. And I don't know if your neurologist told you this or not, but that kind of tumor that you have, it's almost always benign. You're going to be fine. And it's on the edge of your brain. You're going to be fine. Now, I don't know if it's true that that was the best surgeon in the valley, but it was very kind of her to say that and to talk to me about it, right? So then now I'm progressing along. I get the x-ray, and now I'm going into the doctor who splints it, right? Who pulls it out, makes it all come together and puts it in a splint, which actually makes me feel a lot better. And somehow the doctor and I are talking, and we get on the subject of my divorce. And he spends 45 minutes with me in the middle of the night. It was a very slow night in the emergency room, talking with me about my divorce. Now, I'm a counselor, and I know that some of the advice he was giving me was not actually probably the best advice, but it didn't matter. He was spending the time with me, which was so incredibly kind. So then now I have to get a tetanus shot. And so I'm waiting for my tetanus shot. And it's like being on the set of ER. There's this big kerfuffle. And this, there's doctors and nurses appearing from everywhere. There's a gurney being brought in. And I'm just watching, I'm just sitting there waiting for my shot. And I learn all about it because I am right there in a front row seat. And it's this guy in a diabetic coma. And it's the second time he's been there that night. So they hook him up to all the machines and then they leave. And so this guy is in his 80s, and so is his wife, who is now at the hospital for the second time that night. Her husband in a coma. And she's just sitting in the chair, obviously exhausted. So the nurse comes and she gives me my shot. So it's time for me to go home. I can go home. But I had so many lessons in kindness that night. I couldn't leave her alone in that room. So I kind of knocked on the glass door, and I said, I see you in here, and I'm wondering, I brought a book to read. Do you want to have it's a great book. Do you want it? And she just lit up. It was like a wilted flower, comes back to life again. And she said, oh, I'm fine. My son is going to be coming soon. Thank you so much. And what happened to your finger? We had this little conversation. And then I could leave. And as I was driving home, I thought, wow, something really important happened to me tonight. And it wasn't just that I just experienced my worst fear and it wasn't that bad. Something profound happened to me tonight. And it took me a couple of weeks to kind of figure out what was that about. And I realized it was, first of all, I'm not alone. We're not alone. None of us are alone. And second of all, it was super incredibly nice for other people to be kind to me. But the deeper experience, the one that I felt in my soul, was that joy of that person that I was kind to. And it was a light bulb moment. I can be kind to someone else anytime I want. I'm single, my kids are gone most of the time, I'm feeling really lonely, but I get to be kind whenever I feel like it. Whenever I'm feeling down, I could just go be kind, and that would make me feel better. So I made it a practice. I made a practice of kindness. I would go on kindness walks. I was really depressed about Christmas that year because it was going to be Christmas without my kids because of the custody arrangement thing. So I got a tree and I was too depressed to put any ornaments on it. But then I thought, what if each ornament represents a random act of kindness? So I can only put the ornament on the tree if I've gone out and done some kind of random act of kindness. And that I could do. And it became a serious practice because I had hundreds of ornaments that I needed to get on that tree before my kids came home for Christmas. So I really needed to figure out how to do random acts of kindness all over the place. And it was amazing. It was incredibly fun. I was putting Christmas cards with $20 bills in it on random people's windshields in the parking lot. I was delivering people's newspapers. I was picking up dog poop. I found an envelope that had someone's bus pass in it, just on the side of the road. So I mailed them their bus pass. It's fascinating that when you're looking for it, when you need to find that act of kindness that you can do, it just shows up. It shows up all over the place. And by Christmas, my tree was full, which was great. It was awesome. It was, I just spent the morning wrapping, until my kids came home. And it was fine. It was fine. It was an attitude shift. And it was the kindness that helped me make that attitude shift. It wasn't a big deal. It was all going to be okay. And in fact, I made Christmas more meaningful for me than it probably ever had been. Yeah. And I think kindness is something that you can definitely bring your kids in on. Being kind, just being randomly kind. And I know a lot of people have during this pandemic. really encourage their kids to figure out ways that they can be kind to others. And I think that's a wonderful happiness exercise for everybody, and something to be encouraged for sure. Okay, so I didn't remember to pause for questions in the chat, but I'm remembering now. So we're pausing, and in fact, I'm going to stop this. Wait, maybe there's one more slide. I think there's maybe one more slide. Oh, never mind. I'm skipping that slide. Let's go to, I'm going to stop screen share, and we're going to just go to answering your questions. So hit me, Eric. What do we got?
All right. So the first question, how can I remember to be happy, positive? I'm so stressed out and working all the time. I feel like I'm less patient with my kids, which I feel terrible about. I'm usually extremely patient with them. They are home all day and sick of being at home, and they're starting to act up. I was so great for the first 9 to 10 months, and now the last 2 months, my patience is just gone.
You are not alone. You are not alone. You are part of a cultural phenomenon. I think if you asked everybody on this call, they would all say the same things. They're done. It's over. They managed for a while when it seemed to be just a few short months, and now everybody is done. So totally get it. And how can you do that? How can you turn that around? Part of it, I think, is putting your personal happiness top priority. Top priority. That gets done first. You create the time for it. You don't go, oh, well, yeah, I'll do mine after I take care of this for the kids and this for my spouse and this for my boss. No, you do that first. You do it first. And, sometimes it is, that you have to do it first thing in the morning. But you make that a super priority. And then you just take any one of the exercises that we talked about today and you really do it. You really do it. And maybe that's that you meditate before the kids wake up. And it means you have to go to bed earlier, and it means there's a tumbling effect, and it doesn't matter. You've decided that has top priority. Yeah. Maybe it's that you go for that great run, right? Maybe it's that you conspire with your friend about the really great thing that you're going to do for someone else to be kind. Yeah. But I think really the secret is making it a priority, carving out the time, and then just going, yep, nothing interferes with this. I have a friend who started jogging. He's lost 15 pounds. It's amazing. But he started jogging, and it started with a walk. And he just said, every morning my alarm is going to go off at that time, and I must get up and do that walk. And then he walked farther, and then he started running, and now he runs 3 miles a day. And everything has turned around in his life because of that. And I look at him and go, wow, you've lost weight. Your attitude is better. I mean, it's just amazing what happened. That was one small thing. You get to choose one of all of these exercises. Just having the self-discipline to do it every day. That's the ticket. Yeah.
And then the follow-up, thank you, Beth. The follow-up is, how will the kids recover from me being impatient with them?
Part of it is they'll recover when you make a repair. Yeah. When later you say to them, you know what, mommy was feeling really upset and mommy took it out on you. And I do feel bad about that, sweetheart. So let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about how we can figure out a way that doesn't happen in the future. And I want you to know that how much I love you and how much I know that was my bad. I overreacted. Yeah, that goes a long way with kids. I think we have to make the time for it to do that kind of repair. We have to have the courage to do that kind of repair, and we have to do it kind of often. And we have to be helping our kids also to regulate. Our kids are also stressed to the max right now. All of their normal ways of coping are not available. Not all, but many. Oftentimes they're coping with things that are actually destructive, not helpful, like spending all their time on YouTube or video gaming or whatever. So helping your children, talking with your children, especially your older children, about, okay, we all have to do something for our stress. What are you going to do? And what am I going to do? Can we be accountability partners for each other? Yeah. I do think we do need to be actively thinking about how we can help our kids reduce their stress as well. Yeah. Does that answer it?
The next question
Okay.
is about how do you help a tween, say a 9 to 11-year-old, who has a glass half empty or pessimistic outlook on life? For example, the child takes a math test and assumes he did poorly, even though he's doing fine in math. And there's a related question about what is a happiness exercise for a tween with a pessimistic attitude?
Yeah. Okay. So, 9 to 11 is a time of very interesting brain spurts going on. And this is a time when kids can understand things on a little bit more abstract level. So I think it's helpful to talk with kids at this age about that they have a choice about how to feel about something. So you had a math test today. And right now, what's happening is you're feeling worried about the test. If you felt really optimistic, like it was going to be great, would that change the actual result at the end? Right? So does how you did on your math test depend on how you feel about it now? Oh, no, it doesn't. So it's not going to change the world in any how you feel, right? Okay, all right. So I'm glad we established that. All right. So there's lots of different ways you could feel about your math test. And you could feel, maybe you did a terrible job, and you could be really worried about it and really keep thinking over and over again, oh, maybe I got that answer wrong. And how would that end up for you? How would that be making you feel if you were thinking those thoughts of, oh, I must have blown it. Oh, I can't believe I'm so bad at math. How would that make you feel? Really awful, wouldn't it? Okay. Well, what could you think about it that would make you not feel awful? You get a choice of what you think, right? It's your world. You get to make a choice. So what could you think about that math test that would make you happy? Yeah, you could think, oh, well, I aced it. And they're going to say to you, but that's not true. Ah. But in this case, we don't know what's true, do we? We have to wait to find out what's true. So would you rather wait feeling awful, or would you rather wait feeling happy? Well, we could try an experiment about how you wait, how you change your thought so it's a happy thought. So what would be a happy thought about your test? I aced it. Okay, well, let's just say that like 20 times. I aced that test. I aced that test. I totally aced that test. I aced that test. See, let's say it with feeling at least 20 times. Yeah. Okay. And by that time, their little survival brain has just made the switch into positive thinking. So that's one way. As a therapist, that's how I would be working on it. And you can be the therapist mom or the therapist dad and give that a try and see if that helps. For littler kids, sometimes what I do is just name that feeling. There's research about how if you name it, it goes away or it reduces. Oh, I see that you're feeling really worried about your test, right? Just naming it and having empathy for it, that someone else has empathy for your feelings. I think sometimes kids repeat their negative feelings because they think you don't really understand how very badly that they feel. So showing them your empathy with your whole body. Oh my God, that sucks. Oh, maybe you did fail. Oh, I bet that's really, really tough to be thinking that way. Sometimes that's enough to help them get out of having to repeat to you over and over again what a really bad situation this is. For some kids, you just have to get them out of the house. Let's go run around the block. Yeah, I can see that you're really upset right now. Let's do something to make you feel better. How about running around the block? Let's get out of here. Let's think about what we're grateful for, right? Something that just is kind of an interrupter, a distraction and an interrupter, and something that's on the list of the exercises to make you feel better. Okay. Yeah. Another question? I can see that the chat has like 36 things.
What is the best technique for a working mom who's dealing with distance learning burnout? I assume that means the child is burned out, but probably the working mom is also burned out with it.
Everybody's burned out. I actually think having a really good conversation with the teacher is always a good thing to do. I think everybody's burned out. You're burned out, probably every other mom in that kid's class is burned out. The teacher's probably burned out too. And just acknowledging it, just getting some support around that, just talking with other parents who go, yeah, I'm burned out too, it sucks. Actually getting support is very helpful for lifting up, right? For just being able to complain, right? With someone who really gets it, yeah, that can help the feelings to go away a bit. In terms of the actual physical, how you arrange your life so that it's not so incredibly stressful. I wish I could figure that out. I wish everyone could figure that out. It's a nightmare right now. I'm just holding in my positive thoughts that things are going to change pretty soon. I know you probably have already tried everything you can think of to make your schedule less onerous. It's hard. It's hard for everybody. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
So here's another thought and question. Do you count the company and love of your pets as part of nature to help release stress and make us happier? Even on my busiest day, our cats and doggy find the way to make my family and I laugh and to show us they're so happy because we've been with them working and studying at home all day and night, and they show us their unlimited love and their thanks for giving them a forever home.
Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better. I think that's awesome. You know what pets bring to us is that they live in the moment, right? They're not reproaching you because you went to the grocery store and you weren't with them, right? They don't care. They're super happy to see you, right? They're living for right now, yeah? That's the lesson I think that pets have for us. Live in the now, purr, right? Just figure out a way to get stroked right now, yeah? Right now, here in this moment. Thank you. I should have added that to the list of exercises. My bad. You're right. Having pets and enjoying your pets and spending time with them is a wonderful stress reliever. Totally agreed. 2 thumbs up.
This person says, I'm comparing myself to others and it keeps me from being happy. Are there any tips to help me stop?
Part of it is to recognize those thoughts when they arrive. And to recognize that they are an emotional truth that's stored in your belief system, not a real truth that's really true about the world. So say, I'm trying to think of an example of comparing. That person makes a lot more money than I do, and that's not fair. And I'm a failure because I haven't figured out how to make more money. Yeah. So is that whole thing true? Is what that means about so actually, okay, wait, I'll take it back one more step. When you're comparing yourself to others, the first thing to think about is, what does that mean about me? So you go, yeah, that person makes a lot more money than I do. What does that mean about me? And that's where you uncover your unconscious thought about money making, your lack of money making, somehow what that means about who you are. Yeah. And oftentimes these unconscious thoughts have been stored since childhood and they're not true. So that person makes more money than me. And the reason that that's upsetting is because I'm a failure. If I don't make a lot of money, that means I'm a failure. Is that true? Who told you that lesson? And how old were you when they taught you that lesson? Is it really true? Come on now. Is it really true? Aren't there ways in which you are not a failure? Totally not, totally a success. Yeah. And I bet that there are. And I bet that that person who maybe makes more money than you, or maybe they have a better car, or maybe they seem to be handling COVID better than you are, you don't know their whole story. You do not know their whole story. All of us have places where we're doing okay and places where we're totally failing. That's just the nature of reality, right? So first, try to uncover that thought about what does this mean about me? And when did I learn that lesson? And is it really true? And then see if you can come up with a different lesson, you know, which might be, I'm earning exactly what I need to earn to have an amazing life. Yeah. Or it might be I made a choice to earn less and spend more time with my kids. Yep, so whatever, create that belief that's like empowering. That's like, yeah, the opposite of I'm a failure. Yeah. But make it ring really true for you. Maybe at first it won't ring true for you, but if you could believe it, it would make you happy. And then do just what I said about the kids doing. Just repeat it out loud. Just repeat it many, many times. Yeah, I am totally a success because I made a choice about how I was going to live my life and I am doing it. Yeah. And repeat that many times. Yeah. And see if you can change your unconscious thought. The last step of that process is to notice when you have that thought again and then think the new thought. Notice when you're comparing the next time and go, ha, gotcha. Because I'm not going to think that old thought that I'm a failure because I don't live up to you. I'm going to think my new thought that I am the bomb and I am a true success for my life, the way I want to live it. Okay, do you see? So you think a new thought, you practice the new thought, and then you're ready for the next time the old thought comes along so that you can think the new thought. Okay? Give it a try. I think a lot of us are getting into pessimism. It's not just the children, it's the grown-ups right now. And I would say that getting really great support is really, really important. You know, therapy is good. And really having someone to talk things through with, figure things out with, can be enormously helpful. So that's another piece of advice. If you're done and this is it, maybe find a really great therapist or a coach or a really great friend who's going to provide you with the kind of support that you need right now.
We have another question regarding a tween who's becoming very anxious about leaving home. And she hyperventilates when she tries something new or has to meet with some of her classmates.
This is an epidemic. We are seeing this all over the place. It's so in my I run this clinic. I've got a bunch of other therapists. I get to hear all the stories, and we are seeing this a lot right now. It's a little scary for me. I have to remember that there's a lot of kids that are doing just fine, but there are a lot of kids who are becoming, afraid to leave their homes because they just haven't. You know, we get afraid of the stuff that's unknown. We get afraid of the stuff that we haven't done, right? I think it would be great to get some help for your child and for you to figure out how to handle this issue. What we know about phobias, you know, this having this great big reaction to something that we're afraid of that's actually not that scary, is that we actually, psychologists know, have really great protocols for really solving this problem and solving it pretty quickly in a kid. So, but it's not necessarily intuitive, and It's subtle how you can help people with this. So I really recommend that you get some help for your daughter. That she's hyperventilating about it makes me think that it's a serious problem that really could use some help. A lot of kids are afraid to go outside, though, I will say that. And this is, if all of you listening here, if you want to prevent that, keep taking them out, keep taking them out, keep taking them out. Because we don't want to create this situation where they don't even know what's outside their bubble, right? So, yeah, I hope that helps.
There's a parent who asks about his 5-year-old boy who starts acting like a cat and meowing instead of talking to the parents sometimes. The parent knows it's a coping mechanism, but would like the child to open up and use words. The parent says he's very smart and usually engaged, but I know he's tired of Zoom and he wants to connect with other kids.
Yeah, this is actually pretty common for a 5-year-old. For 5-year-olds, like, who am I? I could be a cat. I could be a princess, or I could be a cat. And 5-year-olds love to get into that pretend thing, right? And I think what you're describing is when it gets irritating, because they're trying to communicate something, or they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're pretending to be a cat instead. And so first of all, appreciate 5 doesn't last forever. 5 is one of my favorite ages. I love 5 because that big imagination is just all over the place. So 5 won't last forever. This is a phase, and it's perfectly okay for you to say, oh, I see you're being a kitty cat right now. Tell you what, why don't you go to your room, and when you're ready to be a little boy again, come right back out, and then we can talk about this, okay? So, and even if this is about, you're asking them to put their dish in the dishwasher and they're like, meow, meow, don't know how, you can still say, you know what, kitty cat, go to your room, and when you're ready to be a little boy again, come right back out, and you'll still have to put that dish in the dishwasher. Okay. And frankly, your little 5-year-old needs playmates. And if he wants to play cat sometimes, it's okay to get down on the floor and play cats, okay? Because he doesn't have little playmates that'll play cats with him. And unfortunately, the only people around, holy cow, are our parents. So see if you can join in and just play cats for a little bit. That might make you happy too. So anyway.
Another parent says, my 3rd grade student told the class that he just hasn't been happy since he was in 1st grade. He said he usually tries to hide his unhappiness. Do you have any suggestions?
Can you repeat the last part? He says
the child says he usually just tries to hide his unhappiness. Do you have any? He's been unhappy for 2 years. Do you have any suggestions?
First of all, I wouldn't panic, because a lot of times kids say things that are dramatic to have the dramatic effect on their peers. So I wouldn't go overboard going, oh my God, my kid's depressed and they're just little. But I would pay attention to it. And I would be considering, and you could ask that question, what was it in 1st grade that was fun, that made you happy? Yeah. And it's going to be really hard to get an answer out of that kid, but you can try. What kind of things make you happy now? Let's try doing that a lot and see if that makes your happiness get better. Yeah. Yeah. What we worry about with kids, that when we are seeing kids who are really depressed, we're seeing they have trouble with their sleeping. They're either sleeping too much or not sleeping at all. They're complaining of stomach aches. They are having negative thoughts about pretty much everything, and are really, really low energy. So if you see that also in your son, then I would be concerned, and I would go to the pediatrician, and I would see if I could find a mental health professional who can help. Okay.
Here's a parent who asks, at what point does positive thinking become delusional?
Depressed people actually have a more accurate view of reality. When I read that study, I went, yep, you're right. And I'd rather have my rose-colored glasses on and be happy. Well, it becomes delusional when you've created an entire reality that's just actually not verifiable by other people. Yeah. I don't like to be critical of positive thinking, and it's not about, oh, I'm going to create, oh, the world is actually a really happy place. Yeah, and we all know that right now the world is not a happy place, and I can still have a positive thought about a future that I think is going to be happier. Right? That's not delusional. That's just changing my reality right now. Right? So people are having positive thoughts. They're not necessarily predicting the future. They're just making their own reality right now better, right? Just making it better. Sometimes people will get into, I'm going to be president of the United States. I'm going to be the president of my company, right? And I think other people look at that and go, oh, you're delusional. And I think of it like, aim for the stars, and then you're going to land at least on the moon. When we're thinking about our goals and expressing our goals to other people, what we need other people to say is, yeah, right on, you go for it. I think you could do that. And what we need to know ourselves is that every step along the journey is a fun one. And when we created gigantic, amazing goals for ourselves, then the journey itself is going to be fun. And wherever we land, it doesn't matter if we get to be at the spot that we wanted, that we stated as our goal. If we got part way, that would be awesomeness. And if we had that happiness that comes from going toward a goal that's really exciting to us, then that made our present moment wonderful, right? Yeah. So I'd say it's not delusional. It's positive thinking is helpful for right now. It doesn't predict the future, except in a really kind of weird, subtle way. Because when you are happy, you do create a reality that's happier. When you're happy, people want to go out to lunch with you. When you're happy, people want to hire you for a job. When you're happy, people want to give you a promotion. When you're happy, people want to date you. So there is a way in which having those positive thoughts is actually, it is creating happiness for you and a better future, because you have you've made that happen just by being happy. So I know that's a little woo-woo, and so I'll let all of you who want to be depressed and have a much more accurate view of the world, just go for it.
So we have one more question for you. This parent asks, what do you think of social media? Because the kids are socializing virtually during shelter in place. How does this affect their happiness for a teenager or a tween? Is it helpful or harmful?
Of course, anything has pluses and minuses, right? And any technology, it's how you use it. Kids, of course, don't have a lot of discernment about how they use their technology. And there are billions of dollars spent on industries aimed at addicting people to their screens. So I guess you could say that I am pretty down on social media. I know that there are some benefits, and I totally get it that your tweens and teens, this is the only contact that they have with their friends. But are you reading those tweets? A lot of them are super negative. There's a lot of cyberbullying going along, a lot of negative thinking, a lot of kids saying things that they would never say to somebody's face, right? A lot of gossip. I don't know. I totally hear you that this is the parent's dilemma. And I wish I could remember the website, but there's a guy who started this website that's just for parents about social media and how to get their kids off of it, or how to help them to use it wisely. I'm sorry, 60-year-old brain, I can't remember the website, but search around. There's a lot available for parents about social media, about internet use, about how to help their kids make wise choices online. And I think it's just another job that all of us parents have to do right now to figure out how to protect our children, because it's pretty bad out there. And it's not just the companies that are trying to suck them into porn and video gaming and gambling. It's their peers who are just being awful with them. So it's worth a lot of discussions. I think really educating yourself and finding out about ways that you can protect your teens. So sorry, I got on my rant. I'm a little negative about that one. I'd like to think positively that all of us are going to teach our kids about how to do social media great, how to be kind on social media, how to reach out to friends and just say hello and be supportive. That's the future that I want to create. So maybe we can all create that together.
And just as a quick follow-up to that, Beth, National PTA, and we put the links into the chat, has a lot of really great resources for parents. So they have Be Internet Awesome, and then there's also Safety Internet Day and week, and how to make your children and you become better digital citizens. So we do want to make sure that you guys are taking advantage of those also free resources that our wonderful organization has put together from the national level. So it's really great. They've partnered with Google. They've partnered with your not so favorite TikTok, but there are a lot of great resources out there that we want to make sure parents are taking advantage of as well.
I love that. That's great. Thank you, Eric. That's awesome. Really cool. Those of you who mentioned this as a problem, you're also not alone. This is a societal problem. And I'm so glad that the PTA is stepping up and giving parents the resources that they need. That's awesome.
So,
all right, are we wrapping up?
I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's great to see all of you, and I hope you enjoyed Beth's discussion. It was very enlightening. And, even for me, my kids are older, and I think I brought a lot out, got a lot out of it. So thank you. Thank you again for everyone coming. And we have another series next week, I believe. So please sign up for our next speaker as well. And thank you again, Beth.
No problem. It was great to be here. Thanks for all for coming, and take good care. Hug those kids for me, okay? Bye.